also things that we need to look into. What can or what should young people, young entrepreneurs, what should they know? When we talk about intra-African agro-trade policies, like what can we help together if Nigeria is growing more of groundnuts and tomatoes? Is there a particular country that is doing more of tubers than the particular country that is doing more of nuts? Is there a particular country that is doing more of of certain fruits, different kind of crops that they can actually work together? But more important, beyond just the crops, what are the policies that exist that can help make this that can help make life better for Africans generally, especially young people now? What are things that young people should know? Because some people know it, but young people might just not be in the know about these things actually. So these are some of the things that I would be saying in this particular session.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. I'm still going to introduce you, ma'am. I'm going to
Okay.
do
Oh,
that now.
sorry. Yeah, it's
All right.
fine.
Yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. We can actually hear you. So we actually have a speaker ready. We can see like our speakers are ready to actually speak to us this morning. So we do not. I'm just going to be reading a bio in a few seconds. All right. So our next speaker is Miss Comfort Onyaga. That's our next speaker this morning, and of course let's get ready to actually welcome her. So Miss Comfort Onyaga is she's experienced in advancing global food security, combining cutting edge expertise in market system development, system thinking, design thinking, and inclusive innovation. Now, our work is dedicated to transforming agri-food systems by addressing the challenges of food, nutrition, and livelihood security across diverse global contexts. With the career marked by strategic partnerships and cross-sectoral collaboration, Ms. Comfort excels in deploying innovative, scalable solutions to drive inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction. Ms. Comfort has led the design of sustainable food systems, including a visionary 20-year strategy plan and a 3D model to position Fremantle City as a sustainable food hub for Western Australia. Her leadership at the CLICE Foundation resulted in strategic partnerships with local and international donors and the private sector to accelerate the commercial adoption of climate smart technologies. These efforts have helped reduce post-harvest losses and CO2 emissions, benefiting agribusinesses and local food systems across the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. As a recognized thought leader, she sits on the board of several organizations, including Policy Shapers, the International Food and Agri-Business Management Association, Oceania Chapter, and Policy Alert. She contributes her expertise to UNFCCC, Yonko Group Food and Agriculture Working Group, and United Nations Association of Australia Western Australia Division. She's a serial founder, Slice Foundation, and Izanu Africa. She's an award-winning agri-insurtech company recognized for its innovative climate risk insurance solutions tailored to smallholder farmers. LEDAC 2024. I would like that we have our reactions. We applaud our speaker as she comes forward this morning to speak about intra-African agro-trade policies. What should young entrepreneurs know? Ms. Comfort Onyaga will be letting us know in few minutes. Good morning, Ms. Comfort. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for that introduction. A very good morning to you all. Please, I would like to say this. You might hear bits of noise from the background. And I'm not able to turn my camera on right now because of where I am. I just had to like squeeze this time to do this because I did not want to, disappoint the organizer, the convener of the event. I'd given her my word. So it's an honor to participate and engage in this, discussion with you all. And I'm really excited to see that young people are beginning to key into the agricultural sector and not just looking at it from the national level within their countries, but also seeking to participate actively in the global or at continental level. Um, so I don't know if everyone has heard about the African Continental Free Trade Area. I mean, if you haven't, I know that they have a website, so it might interest you to look at it critically because again, the agricultural sector I would start with is made up of different segments. So there are different segments to even each value chain. So for instance, if you pick a particular crop, um, there are different segments to it, and there are different ways that young people can, key into the African Continental Free Trade Area. So is a flagship project of the Agenda 2063 and this agenda is Africa's overall development framework. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. And
Okay,
it's pretty clear, very clear.
okay. Oh, great. Awesome. I'm happy that because I'm somewhere in the forest, literally. So, um, so talking about the after, let me just, go straight to the point. So to start with, like you rightly said, it would be nice to first of all look inwardly as a young person within your country and even in the country that you are in. Some of you here might not have started your agri businesses. You might be exploring areas you want to work in, across different segments of the agricultural value chain. So there are different leverage points. I'll try as much as possible not to be too technical. So there are different opportunities within different segments of the agricultural value chain in your local community before we go to the country level, because every country is made up of states, we have regions, we have state and or county, depending on where you're participating from. And then we have local communities. So for instance, if you take, um, I'm trying, okay, in order to be neutral, I wanted to use, because I'm Nigeria, it's just natural that one would use Nigeria as a case study. So if you're from a country, you have a state or a county, and then you have your local government within that local area that you reside, not necessarily your local government of origin. You could identify farmers who are already producing within specific value chain. So let's not even go to the production bit because it's overwhelming. Primary production is overwhelming within the agricultural value chain. It requires a lot of resources for you to be able to invest to produce the volume of products that is required for that kind of trade at that level. So when you identify farmers, you could actually work with them as aggregators. I'm just trying to like map out opportunity so that this would now be like the baseline for which you can engage with the African Free Continental Trade Area. And then as an you can actually work with them as aggregator. So by aggregator, I mean um collecting or yeah, aggregating. Let me use the word as it is. So aggregating this farm produce, in large volume. But before you do that, you need to identify your market. Who is your target market in the other African country that you want to serve, that you want to offer these products to? And then you have to ask yourself another question. Okay, um, do I want to add value to it? Do I have the resources to add value to it? If you're able to do all of that, you can also now, you're like the next level for you, because you need to do your homework before you plug into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. I'm trying as much as possible to simplify this so that everybody is able to understand. I don't want to sound so technical, so it's relatable because I see most of the question around, okay, youth, we don't have farmland, we're not able to do X, Y, Z, we have limited resources. How can we plug into the opportunities that are within the agriculture value chain? So now, if you do that, there is the Chamber of Commerce. I know that in different countries, we have Chamber of Commerce, we have the standard organization, the people who, you know, provide, who certify this produce or the farm products, you know, um, you need to get, there's at the continental level, there's ASO. We have, what's it called? So we have ASO. ASO is actually Africa. I visited their office in Nairobi. I know that ASO has an office in Nairobi for the Kenyans on the call. So it's the African Organization for Standardization. So what they do is they work with different food safety and standard organizations across different countries to ensure that products that are going that are moving across borders meet the market standard. So one of the things you want to do is ensure that whatever products you want to, export to other African countries, leveraging this African free trade and free continental trade area, has the required certification at the country level and at the continental level. That's your starting point. Like, you cannot trade with other country without ensuring that you meet your own country requirement for standardization and then their own country requirement for standardization. But of course, you need to do your market research, to ensure that the product you're also exporting, right, is culturally appropriate. And again, I understand that some Kenyans, for instance, may be living in Uganda or in other African countries. But one of the things you want to ensure is that what's the population of these people in a particular country, because you do not want to export a product that you would not be able to sell due to low demand. If it is a generic product like peanuts, we know that people consume peanuts a lot. And assuming that you're exporting from Nigeria or you're exporting from Zimbabwe or from Ghana. So what you need to do is to do like a mapping of existing markets in the other countries that you want to export your products to. And you need to get a specification, because in terms of these products, most times, if they are dry products, even wet products as well, like fresh produce, there are requirements such as moisture content, and your product has to be traceable. There's the aspect of traceability, because now some markets would say, hey, we want organic produce. And if your product is not organic, or if it is organic, how do you ascertain, how do you prove to the market that this product is organic, the off-taker from the other country? You need to ensure that there is that element of traceability. And at the same time, there is a broad framework for quality control. So now quality control encompasses all of these things I have said, from your certification in your home country, the requirement from the requirement from the country you want to export to the continental certification body, which is the ASO. you need to ensure that you have that, you tick the boxes. So the Chamber of Commerce is the go-to place for you as an entrepreneur working within the agri space to ensure that um, you meet all the requirements. And of course, this Chamber of Commerce have the checklist. So my checklist might not be exhaustive. But another thing, again, I do not think that a lot of people are aware of issues around biosecurity. For instance, in Nigeria, we have the National Agriculture Quarantine Service. One of the things you want to ensure you do is, even if that product is certified, you want to take your product to them to, sample product to ensure that it goes through the quarantine test. And that will actually help you to, avoid issues around border control, because a lot of times you hear people who are trading saying, oh, I sent this product, it was impounded by the custom or any of those border patrol services. This is usually because they don't have this quarantine certificate. Like by the time it gets to the recipient country, you realize that there are issues around there are quarantine issues, like there are certain products that are prohibited. But in the event that you're exporting those kind of products, you need to have like your quarantine certificate. And I strongly believe that the Chamber of Commerce has that as their checklist. Yeah, so another thing you also have to look at is beyond the policy side of things. Like I'm speaking from an experienced business person's point of view, so that you don't just I do not think that at the point, at the level that the African Free Continental Trade area is operating right now, like I don't I can't I'm not confident that there is that watertight framework yet for people to maximize the benefits of what the African Continental Free Trade Area has to offer. There are certain things that are not yet in place. So as it is right now, there is more focus on country-based requirements than the general like continental-based, requirement. Like practically, and within the framework of the operation. So you rather rely more on your own home country and the recipient country. Then if you have already mapped out your market, you know the people that are taking those products, because different markets have different requirements. So once you know that you have what your market wants from you, and from the ASO point of view, you have been able to meet their own requirements, it becomes very easy for you to trade. And this applies to other non-agricultural products as well. So you need to have that at the back of your mind. And of all the African countries, so there are also like disparities here and there. Some countries have some biases. You need to look at what those biases are within different countries to ensure that, okay, because you cannot say because Ghana requires XYZ, country B, Zimbabwe, would also require the same thing. Like you might get a checklist from Ghana and it's totally different from what you're getting. So there is no single general or generic framework that is watertight yet, that works for all the countries, all the member countries as we speak. None that I'm aware of apart from ASO. Even after you get your ASO, trust me, you're still going to be asked for those regional specific market requirements, and sometimes as additional certification to be able to, trade within the region. One of the things also I would like to say is because a lot of young people, have their startups and all of that. You need to critically examine what the policies are, the startup policies are within the countries that you want to, operate, because there are issues around taxes, you know, different nuances for different regions, different countries. So for instance, we have the Startup Act as Nigeria. So you need to look at what the act say. If you're trading using your own startup as a Nigerian or Kenyan registered startup, you need to look at issues around the protocols, you know, within different countries. That's now I've shifted away from the set issue of certification for the product. You need to look at those things. They are different for different countries, like I said, and then you have to be you have to be sure to look at issues around data. So because I mean technology is the trend, is the new normal, is the leverage point for which people, it's easy for everyone to just wake up one morning, set up their agri tech platform. They want to, digitize access to XYZ products. You need to look at issues around data policies. So what kind of data are you collecting from the customers, even from the market? If it's a B2B model, or if you have like cluster of consumer or no retailer in the other country that you're supplying to, you need to look at issues around data policy, to be sure that you're not violating the policy. And the policy in your home country would definitely or most likely be different from policies in the other country. So you need to take that into consideration. And you're all aware that we do not have a single currency. Africa as a continent does not have a single currency yet. So you have to ensure that you're getting value for money for your products that you're selling. This is another practical aspect of business when it comes to export, because a lot of times young people go into business with the mind that, oh, I want to export my product, and they don't take into consideration the cost of doing business. That's a major factor, because it's a business, you're there to make profit. So the exchange rate across African countries are not the same. So the Nigerian currency, the Kenya currency, Cameroon, all those African countries, their strengths vary. So you need to look at that and ensure that the pricing, are actually within your economics of production from your home country, and then competitive enough in the country that you're trading with. I think these are the basics, really. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So
Thank you so
I don't know if
much.
I'm within
Yeah,
time.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank you so
okay. I'm
much,
trying as much
Comfort.
as possible. Yeah.
I think when the questions start coming, then because we even have a question already in the comment section, then to help you to expand more. So far, thank
Okay,
you.
great.
That was
All right, thank you so much, Miss Comfort, and of course, this particular topic is one that um, I have heard a lot about, and I have asked so many questions about in the past. But remember, if you have any questions, you can always drop them in the chat box, or indicate like just a show of hands, and then you can go ahead and ask your questions. One question I was going to ask, you as well, is talking about the AFCTFTA, AFCT, AFCFTA, right? Um, it has been said when it was initially introduced, it was said to be, or that was going to be probably one of the largest free trade area if all African countries decide to come on board. Um, but at the moment, can we actually say that we actually have all African country on board with that? I know you also mentioned ASO as well, but AFC, can we say we have all African countries on board at the moment? And
We
if
do not have all.
so, what does this do for, or what does this do? How does this affect, how people can then actually freely do business amongst other African countries. Let's even not forget the fact that our visa, we still have visa restrictions amongst so many African countries. It's kind of difficult sometimes to get visa to visit some African countries than it is to visit some countries, even in Europe. So, what do these policies, these restrictions that exist, what do they do? In restricting the growth of agribusiness in Africa.
Yes, so the thing is, let me go back a bit. There's this thing I say and I find really fascinating to start with that um especially amongst the young people. I've lost count of the number of persons that reach out to me this month to say, hey, Comfort, please, I'm looking to export my products. I would like to, leverage your network. I would like to receive some support from you and all of that. It's contradictory in the sense that we are facing food security crisis across different continents, right? At country level, both continental, country, globally, food security is a major crisis. So how is
Mhm.
it that we've not been able to feed ourselves and then we are worried about exporting? That's an aside. It's a food for thought. It's just something you should put somewhere at the back of your head and think about how you can address food need and meet the demand within your local country. And then, so talking about membership, the thing is, yeah, not all African countries have signed up, and these are issues around bilateral and multilateral agreements within the AFTA framework. And each entrepreneur, that's why I say you need to do your homework. So at that level, it begins with your, when I spoke earlier, I said you have to do your homework. You have to look inwardly and see what the requirements are. So when you go to the Chamber of Commerce already have this checklist and all of that. But the truth is, you need to look at what are the political and economic conditions within your country, like, and what is the relationship between your country and the country you are targeting. So for
Mm,
instance, it's easy for a young entrepreneur in Nigeria to say, hey, Ghana is the next big market. My friends in Kenya are exporting to Ghana. My friends in Zimbabwe and Ghana, or Kenya and Ghana might have a very healthy bilateral trade relations. And then Nigeria and Ghana may not have it, regardless of the fact that we are both in West African region. So there are bilateral and multilateral trade issues between these two countries. And these are not issues that you can solve as an individual, as an entrepreneur. Even if all the private sectors come together, they cannot solve problems between governments. So, but then, however, it calls for advocacy. So that's where even the non-profit comes in, where advocacy, they take the advocacy issue. I mean, there's usually that collaboration between the private sector and the non-profit sector to advocate for certain policy and also see how there can be some sort of ease of doing business in terms of bilateral economic relations between both countries. But that on the side, the implication of this is that you cannot be targeting as an entrepreneur in the agricultural value chain, you can't be targeting countries that do not have a healthy bilateral trade relationship, or political or economic. It could be a political thing. So there's something called the political economy analysis. You need to do that homework. Like, you have to do that homework for yourself to ensure that you understand the market that you're going to, because then this is why I also say you would not you would not you would not you know you will not set out to do business with other country without doing all this research. You need to do the market research. You need to understand the kind of relationship that exists between your country and the other country. And you were right, you know not all countries have signed this agreement, so are part of this. And there are a whole lot of issues. It's like a murky water. Sometimes you're not even able to, as an ordinary citizen, you're not able to really pinpoint what the issue is. It's like a what's it called? I usually use the iceberg model to explain this. At the top of it is, you know, that these two countries are not always agreeing. But if you go to the next level, to the next layer, like there's so many things underneath the iceberg that we may not see. The only thing we'll see at the surface level is, oh yeah, these two countries, they don't trade with themselves, da 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 da. But there might be some political issues, or it could actually be personal issues between two presidents that is causing the problem. And then it's impacting you. So it means that what you, as an entrepreneur, you need to redirect your efforts and your resources to targeting other country or focus on addressing the needs within your country. Thank you.
Yeah, but we can't hear you.
Unmuted. All right, thank you so much, Miss Comfort. So I was asking, do we have questions? If you have
Yeah, there's
questions,
someone that made it.
okay, there's
Yeah,
one.
I
Okay,
see
come on.
something.
All right, so it
I
says,
want to
thank you.
elaborate.
All right, probably you just go ahead and read and take it then.
Yeah, so this person says, I want you to elaborate more on agricultural technology and its nexus with Agenda 2063 after the first 10 years plan has elapsed and there is nothing concrete to show for it, especially around continental collaboration, liberation and integration in a global. The thing is, you know, if you even go back to I usually make a reference to this. If you go back to the Maputo Declaration, where African leaders agree that the budgetary allocation for agriculture would be 10%. So its charity begins at home. Let's even leave the continental level at home individually. This is a declaration, this is an agreement that African leaders signed without anybody pointing any gun at them. We are not even talking about digital technology yet. I'll come back to that side of your question, to that part of your question. How many Africans here can boldly say my country has been able, or my country is currently implementing that policy, that agreement? How many country has 5 or 6, 7% of their budget allocated to agriculture? So when it comes to agriculture, it's very dicey. For instance, we've tried to even, as a business person, as a startup founder, we have tried to, based on the data that different startups are throwing out there for whatever it is they're achieving. You know, when it comes to technology, first, I would like to say that innovation and technology are two different things. Like, there can be technological innovation and there can be innovation within different segments of production, or either primary or secondary production within the agricultural sector. It could just be simple product redesign and all of that, but we can't even be talking about agricultural tech. Okay, I think I need to do something. I need to understand if you're referring to digital technology or infrastructural technology, because we have digital technology and we have mechanized farm equipment that is also technology. So before we even as young people jump into, the wave of technology, we need to understand that the agricultural sector is it's very different from every other sector, that it's easy for people to jump on product development and then, launch their product and start offering services to people. The agricultural sector in my country, for instance, okay, digital technology, thanks for that clarification. In Nigeria, for instance, the agriculture sector has not developed to the point where the kind of innovation that startups are dishing out in the market, like, we've not gotten to that level yet. There has to be some basis, like at the bottom, if it's a pyramid, at the bottom of the pyramid, there has to be like that reinforcing loop to ensure that we have been able to even address the issues within the smallholder farmers and all of that. We already know that there's a huge what's it called, gap in terms of digital literacy, access to internet and all of that in rural community where food production happens primarily. So if you have not addressed certain issues, you can't be building digital technological innovation to drive agriculture. And there is no way that the 10-year plan would have been able to, like, be at continental level. There is no way that member member countries would be able to come together to achieve anything. What are you building on? When at the market level, at the primary production level, you've not addressed the issues there. There are issues around access to finance, there are issues around, production of indigenous crop to feed the people and not concentrating so much on export produce based on the demand from the donors or the international donors, because at the end of the day, they are stimulating, production for export. Everything is extractive. They want to extract raw materials. They're extracting using technology. There is a pressure for digitization because they want to extract data. So you need to understand all of that. Okay, I'm seeing the comments that we have not gotten to the template of the four industrial revolution. The truth is, we do not have to go through that cycle of industrial revolution. We do not have to. We do not have to follow the European template. We need to understand our context and create our own template that will work based on our unique environment and the peculiarities and nuances we find ourselves in Africa. I think I'll stop there.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions for Ms. Comfort? We still have a few minutes for this Q&A session before we go to the breakout session. Any other questions? Any other questions? Um, if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat box, or preferably you could just, raise your hand. When you raise your hand, you could always unmute yourself and ask the question that you have. Any other questions, anybody? All right, so I would still um ask on some I've seen, throw the question to Miss Comfort. It's still in relation to something I've asked before, and I was going to ask what I think this is still something that's going to be answered or that is going to probably come up in the next segment. But what would you say is the major reason for, because we have ideas, we have policies, in fact we have agreements. You mentioned the Maputo declaration earlier, and that's not the only declaration as regards agriculture that has been signed by EU member states in the past. But we have these great ideas. We have the African continental free trade area, brilliant ideas. What would we say is the actual problem, that is stopping us from bringing these great ideas, these great policies that we've come up with? What would you say, in your own opinion, is the actual problem to implementing these things? Because obviously, if we implement these things, I think to a large extent we've not implemented, so we cannot say, oh, definitely, but most likely we're going to have, like, a better Africa in several spheres. So what do you think is the major hindrance to implementing these good ideas, these policies that African leaders signed? But obviously we see the budgets in many African countries, and it looks like they don't really care much about agriculture. Look at the budget even in countries, and it feels as well like they do not have um they do not care, or they don't bother about it. So what would you say, what would you say is the major problem,
Yeah.
cause of that?
So it's a leadership problem. At the leadership level, we do not have people who have genuine interest for Africa and clear vision. Who we don't have. Sorry, this comment is actually distracting me. Let me close the comment so that I don't pause in between my conversation. Yeah, so we do not have leaders who have number one, who understand the vision for Africa, like they allow their selfish, interests to overtake them and override the common interests of the continent. Beyond the continent, even at country, as at local government level. Okay, Ayodapo, right? So would you say in your local government in Nigeria, for instance, and maybe your councillor in Nigeria, do you think that they are actually what they are doing at that level? Do you think that they have the interest of the community at heart? Their
It doesn't
activities
look.
reflect, does it serve the interest of the people? It's a leadership crisis. It's a
Mm,
leadership problem. So we don't have, even if certain people, okay, let me say, let me, I do not want to believe that everybody in government, think that way. So, but the problem we are having right now is the fact that the number of people who are corrupt, who have selfish interests, overwhelm the
well,
number of people who have genuine interest. So even if a comfort is a systemic problem, so even if somebody like comfort gets into power, because I am a one-man army, in that
against.
pool of politicians, I would
Mm,
not be able to, implement these things. There is going to, you need one minister of agriculture. Let's say I'm a minister, or I'm a member of the House of Representatives, or I was the president. You need the minister of agriculture. You need the chairman house committee on this. You need the Ministry of Budget Planning. So they are all connected. You need people who
mm.
have similar interests and passion and the political will to drive these things. So if we don't have those kind of people in power, we would not be able to achieve this thing. It will not even make sense to them. So for instance, I asked this question, the 134 million, loan that has been collected recently by the Nigerian government and the state of emergency. Are you aware that Nigerian government has declared state of emergency twice on food
On food
security
security. Mm-hmm.
and nothing has been done? It sounds good theoretically that the government prioritizes agriculture so much that state of emergency has been declared. By implication, state of emergency would have meant that they are prioritizing agriculture, ensuring that the systemic constraint, the things that are, hindering the agricultural sector to be able to feed its people, the Nigerian people in the country would be addressed. But where are we today? Nigerian government have collected a lot of loans from the IMF. On top of that, there is a recent loan from the African Development Bank. Where is the money going to? I truly hope that in the next 12 months, we'll be out of the food security crisis. So you realize that it's a leadership crisis.
Thank you so much. We have something here in the chat box. It says, "Can we have the list of organizations that are useful for further research to help many of us that are keenly interested in the agricultural value chain?"
Okay, I'll share that via email to the committee convener and that can be shared to other participants.
All right.
I'm happy.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Comfort Onyaga. Do we have any other person with any other questions before we wrap up this session? We're
Uh,
going. Okay, you have a question, ma'am.
yeah,
Go ahead.
not a question. I just want to emphasize on something that Comfort said, and that I think would also be useful as we go into the other sessions. And I like the fact that, when we went and came and we went and came, we eventually came back to the question of leadership, right? Because at the end of the day, leadership is the backbone of everything. If you have good ideas, but you don't have policies that will ensure a smooth or an easy procession of your ideas or a translation of your ideas to reality, everything you think you know, everything you think you've it I've gotten it, Eureka, I've got this innovation. It can be messed up by policies or policy structures or policy systems. And if we talk about that, then we eventually come back to the question of leadership. Because in those rooms where policies are being made, I am not there, you are not there, at least not yet, right? And that's why we are having this conversation to say that we need to understand that policies changes everything, literally. And that's why I'm always in awe when people think, some of these discussions do not concern them, because these are things that affect our everyday life, right? So, and that is why we are in the next session, we're going to be talking about integrity and leadership. And that's why we have someone that has such an extensive experience. Madam Lucy can talk about every other topic that we are having here, but because of our experience with smallholder farmers, because of our experience in leadership with smallholder farmers, so she is going to really speak to the question of integrity and leadership. And is also the onus is also on us as young people. We don't know where we'll find ourselves tomorrow, but like Comfort said, if you go there as a one-man army, the system is more likely to beat you. So when we have and that's why we said LEDAC is a strategy, right? We are trying to bring about the same similar mindset in us, so that tomorrow, if someone like that attended this conference or that has been participating in our programs goes and become a part of the parliament, becomes a policymaker in future, we just hope that you remember this day and just try to ensure that the common people benefit. Put the interest of people first, because yeah, that's our hope. We hope that having these conversations will also help you, and then make you even hope for more, aspire for more, in life. And then tomorrow we can see that you are the minister of this in Kenya, the minister of this in Cameroon. So I just wanted to really speak to that as we go on. Thank you very much, Dapo.
Thank you so much, Omolowa, and of course, that's actually like very very important. Um, I'll ask another question, but let's just for the sake of time, move on. Thank you so much, Miss Comfort Onyaga, for your session so far, and for your session, and of course for lending your voice to some of the things that we need to do and we need to look into, and we need to actually look into. I like the part where he said young people need to look inward themselves. Also, they also need to know why they are going into that. Anyways, we'll be going for the breakout session.